If you're looking for the most amazing podcast ever, well, this isn't it. You're listening to the Average Fellas Podcast, guaranteed to let you down and leave you unsatisfied.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Average Fellas Podcast. I'm your host, Zodizach, coming to you live all the way from Riverside, California on a Wednesday night. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen, it is a Wednesday night. I saved this episode for a Wednesday night for a special occasion, I guess. I don't know if you've noticed, but some of the banners on some of the social media platforms that we host our content on, I've posted a picture that says Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I'm just letting you guys know that Monday, Wednesday, Friday is coming. Monday, Wednesday, Friday is going to be the every week schedule for the Average Fellas Podcast. It's going to develop into that. Okay, so I'm just letting you guys know ahead of time. We're going to keep the Monday, Thursday schedule for right now. I think for the next month, maybe through the end of the year. But I just want you guys to be ready for Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I want to drop an episode on Wednesday because it's just, for fun. I want to drop a Wednesday episode for fun. Why not? I am the creator, the host, the producer of this podcast. Matter of fact, I'm actually on messaging somebody, booking another episode as we speak. Right now, I'm booking another episode. So I'm booking a Star Bros episode. So if you don't know, Thursday nights is Star Bros. That's where we talk about The Mandalorian. We're finally getting into season 2. So this is going to be great. Maybe this dropped already. Maybe season 2 already started. I'm not sure. Like I said, this is going to drop on a Wednesday night. This is a special Wednesday night episode that I wanted to just have one in the pocket, have one in the chamber, just to drop and publish anytime I wanted to, because like I said, I'm the creator, the host of this podcast. I produce it myself. It's nobody else. I'm an independent podcaster. I can do whatever I want on the show. But it's not like that. I'm not trying to say like, hey, I can do whatever I want. Like I said, I really want to be a service to people. I want to be of service to people. That's what I want my podcast to actually be. When people think about the Average Fellas Podcast, I don't want them to think about me, the host, Zodizach, and like what I think. I want them to think about the other businesses, the nonprofits, the people that we have on as guests, the listener community that participates and shares these businesses, shares these nonprofits with the world. Okay, so that's something that I'm trying to, I guess, create as a culture in my podcast, is this sort of community effort that, I'm getting interviews with small businesses and nonprofits and startups and freelancers, all these maybe these people that you don't know. And the reason why I want to do that is because I believe that their passion, their gift, their product, their business, their dream is worth listening to. I'm an average individual. I don't think I'm greater than anybody. I don't think I'm less than anybody. I think I'm average. And the thing about being an average person is that, sometimes I guess your voice just doesn't get heard. I feel like maybe sometimes the average person feels like maybe their voice isn't big enough. Maybe their dream isn't. Here's the thing. I had this realization: who believes in you? Who believes in me, Zach? Who believes in Zodizach? Right? And the thing is, if you, as an individual person, you have to have some faith in yourself. You have to be able to look at yourself and say, I can do this, right? And so, the podcast for me is literally me doing that, like me putting myself out here to the world. I always talk about wanting to be in the limelight. That's all. As a kid, I think I must have been like 3 years old. My brother messaged me now. He said he's available for the Thursday night Star Bros episode. And so awesome. Beast Mode Squats, Fitness Motivation, guys. Go check that out. That's my brother's Instagram. Beast Mode Squats, Fitness Motivation. If you don't know, my brother's dropped a ton of weight right now. He's looking really good. He's had a lifelong journey with weight loss. And so, his passion, here we go. This is the podcast. This is what the podcast is for. My brother's passion is weight loss, fitness, fitness, really just to live a healthier life, to be a healthier version of himself, because my brother has been on a weight loss journey his entire life. So if anybody knows my brother, Luke Hernandez, AKA Beast Mode Squats, that's his Instagram handle, you know that he's always been in the gym. He's been in the gym for the last 10, 15 years of his life, man, since I can't remember, my brother he struggled with bulimia for a while. He'll talk about that. Actually, if you go to our YouTube channel, there's actually a 30-minute video of him actually sharing some of his past, sharing some of his experience, running the scale from being someone who was 115 pounds that was on the verge of starving themselves to death to being somebody who was obesely overweight. My brother has ran the gambit when it comes to weight loss. And so his passion is fitness. His passion is to inspire people to get healthy, because that's been his goal his entire life. And so, the Average Fellas podcast, we believe in promoting those people. I believe in promoting the average fella. I believe in promoting the average person who's doing something extraordinary, like my brother. My brother is an average individual. That doesn't mean that he's less than you. That doesn't mean he's better than you. That means that we're all the same. He's an average person, and I'm proud to be an average person. I would rather be an equal brick in the wall with my brother and sister in the world. And that's kind of like the idea behind this show. That's what we're trying to create in this community. That's what I'm trying to create in this community. I want there to be an equal playing field when I look at individuals' passion, when I look at someone's dream and says, hey, look at this. This is a podcast I'm producing, and this is what I love to do. And this is where my heart is at. This is where my mind is at. This is where what I'm developing as a person, and respectfully observe what they are doing. That's my job as the host, as the creator of the show. I want to respectfully observe that person's dream. So if you have a business, if you have an idea, maybe you're a streamer, you're a YouTube streamer, you're an Instagram streamer, you're, a Twitch streamer. Maybe you are an independent artist. I've had my friend George Levitt, my friend George J. Lovato, Jay Levity is his SoundCloud rapper name. He is a rapper. He's an artist. He is an honest to God artist. And he's put some work out there on SoundCloud, and I had an opportunity to interview him. I had an opportunity to really get deep into his craft as an artist, because I've seen him grow. I want to invest into my guests as much as the listener invests into listening to the show. So, I sat there. I went through his entire collection on SoundCloud, Jay Levity. Look him up on SoundCloud, Jay Levity. Lifted is one of his projects. I can't remember the other one off the top of my head right now. But I also featured him in the podcast. So, I got to highlight his craft, got to highlight his passion, his story. And to me, that's the world, man. I wish somebody was as interested in what I'm doing as I'm interested as, in what they're doing. I guess I want to be the person that, that I want somebody to be interested in me. I'm saying? I want to be that catalyst. I want to be that guy. So, it's, and those of you guys out there that are listening, this is not for me trying to sound like get on a preach or sound like I don't want to come off as being like someone who's needy for attention or anything. This is my honest to God, feelings about the podcast. This is what I really want to do. This is, my entire life has been a life of service to other people. And I could proudly go on the record and say that, because there's organizations that have my name on it that I've been a part of, that I've worked for, that I've helped, in small local community efforts. And it goes all the way back to high school. It goes back even before that, participating in the community in a local church, not even just a local church, but, just even in other community things. Like there was a nonprofit called LULAC that my mom helped found or start a chapter in Los Banos. And I got to participate in that, and we gave back to the community. We raised money. We provided a scholarship for students. I was a part of that. I also was part of my local church where, we gave. I was a part of this organization called First Priority, which has a a gospel-centered mission. They are a Christian evangelical organization, but the resources that we were able to provide, the community that we were able to provide for these kids I think it's very important. Very important. So for me, I thought, now this podcast that I'm doing, my entire life I've been doing that for people. My entire life I've been working with people, wanting to do something for people, and I'm not saying that people are people. I was a pastor for a while, and I don't hold that title anymore. I think that there are people that are respectably hold that title, and then obviously we have some of those people that make the headline news that we don't agree with. But I was a pastor for a little bit of time in my life, and my job was just to create a sense of I felt that my job as a youth pastor, because I worked with students primarily, my job was that, everybody has an opinion, everybody has a worldview. And I specifically chose to align myself with this worldview, the Christian worldview, because it's just how I feel. It's what I think is right, and everybody's entitled to their opinion. You're allowed to think whatever you want. I'm not trying to say I'm better or worse. None of that stuff. I'm just saying this is a particular worldview that I align myself with. And I felt that as my job working in this organization was to create a bond with the students and their faith. Right. That was my job, was to facilitate an environment that would keep students connected to their faith. Not for me to be some all powerful, Mr. Preacher guy that was collecting money, because let me tell you something. I was a volunteer. I volunteered for 5-6 years. I actually funded my own youth group. I funded my own. There was also individual people that did help. When we took students on trips, to like the beach. We'd have we'd go to Santa Cruz. I'd take like 10, 12 students with me. We'd go out to Santa Cruz with several volunteer chaperones, and the kids would have a time in the middle of summer. Parents are working. Parents are doing everything they can to provide for their children. So as a youth organization, we were able to provide like a weekend trip in the summer for our students, and the church paid for it all out of pocket. Students, they had to pay for anything. The only thing they had to pay for was if they wanted to buy themselves a little treat, and I know what you're saying. Maybe that doesn't mean much to you. Maybe it's like, what good does that do in the world of big thing, in the world's, grand scheme of things? You're just a little rock in this giant sea making a little splash. And it feels like that sometimes. When as a youth pastor, I felt like that. And I know there's plenty of youth pastors out there in the world, probably pastors in general, that feel like that. They just feel like, they don't have enough resources to really be of real service to the community that they serve. And that's always a shame. It's always a shame when you feel that way. I know what that feels like. Like, I wanted to provide more service for these people. I wanted to be able to provide an opportunity for these kids to get tutoring so that way they could perform better academically. I wanted to be able to, provide a facility that had, computers and state-of-the-art resources for kids to be exposed to other technologies that might progress their career in the future. These are the types of things that I thought about as a youth pastor, and I'm sure plenty of other youth pastors dream that way, and they feel the same way. But they're always up against a wall where there's not enough direct help that they can provide to the people that they actually serve. And so I think this podcast and the spirit that I want to sort of adopt with this podcast is to help and to be of service to small businesses, to be of service to nonprofits, to be of service to independent artists, to be of service to anybody who has a dream, anybody who has a passion for what they are doing. I don't care if you're, maybe you're cutting down trees and you're cutting down a nice piece of oak to carve a beautiful statue out of a, piece of wood. Like, if that's your passion and that's your art form, like, I would love to get into it. I would love to have an interview and talk to you about how you discovered your craft, how you actually started perfecting your craft. Why do you continue perfecting your craft? What is your ultimate goal of seeing this through? If you're an artist, I would love to ask you those questions. If you're a small business owner, you're somebody who has practical experience that maybe you could share with other small businesses. I just featured Mike the driver from Trips Hospitality Travel Services. It's complete travel hospitality services in the Palm Springs area. He also has a network of other providers that work with him, so that way he can connect you with other trusted people who he would recommend. And so there's a network of small businesses working together to provide services for people. And I know what you're saying, Zach. Like I know you're probably thinking this, like you're this. What is this? What is this? It's an effort. That's what we're doing. We're making an effort. We are making an effort to provide that level of promotion. You know what I'm saying? Like, here's the thing, this exists. This podcast goes out to 12 different directories across the internet. Okay, I've had downloads in Europe. I've had downloads in Asia. I've had downloads in South America, and it goes out. It goes out, and it's on the internet. It's out there. And if you have a business and you want to get your name out there, this is an opportunity. That's all I'm saying. This is an opportunity. This is an avenue. I post resources on YouTube. I post full episodes on YouTube. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. You name it. On I even have a Pinterest thread for the Average Fellas podcast. And every single time I interview somebody, I post their business. I post I try to link back to their website. If you have a business, if you're selling something online right now and you have links to your website, I want to interview you, and I want to highlight your product, and I want to feature your links on all my platforms, on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Apple, on Spotify, on Google Podcasts. I'll put your link on all those platforms, if you just come onto my show and you let me interview you. I want to do something with this podcast, and I think that there's a way to reach people through a community effort, because it's not just about my story. It's not just about Zodizach and getting Zodizach's name out there. That's a fake name. It's not about that. It's about a community effort of average people, the folks that feel like maybe the elites pass them by. We're dealing with a pandemic right now, the fallout of a pandemic. And we're talking about like companies like Amazon that are swallowing small businesses whole right now, hand over fist. Small businesses are shutting down. And, whatever, I wish that we were able to do more for small businesses. I mean, through the government, individually, private entities that would, help small businesses like myself, like this podcast, Average Fellas Podcast, where we promote small businesses, nonprofits, freelancers, independent artists, the average guys, the small guys. That's what this podcast is for, man. And I'm grateful to have the opportunity to even just put this out there, man. Like I put this show together. Every time I think about this show, and I compare it to just like an old rickety biplane that has seen better days. You know what a biplane is, right? This is not a modern piece of technology. This is a plane that if you looked at it, if there was a fully functioning biplane for you to get into today, you'd probably, take a second thought before you got on board. And, I compare this podcast to like this old rickety biplane that has seen better days. And every time I press record and I start interviewing the guest, I got to get this thing off the ground and into the sky. I want to make sure that the questions I ask, provide some sort of value for the listeners, for you guys out there, because my goal is to inspire you, the listeners. I want to inspire you, the listeners. I want to provide value by inspiring you in some way to chase your dream. You might be an average fella out there and think, why should I follow my dream? Why should I do for myself? Maybe, I don't know if you have that thought. I don't know. I'm just talking into a microphone right now. Literally my dog Russell's sitting on the couch next to me. He's the face of the podcast, and he's laying down and he's snoring, and I'm talking into this microphone. I don't know who's on the other side listening. That's the kind of cool thing about this. I don't know who's out there listening, hit up the comments. Let us know, let us know who's listening out there. Hey, here's the thing. I would love a review, guys. If you can go on Apple Podcasts and leave a review, and maybe you're not on the Apple platform, go to YouTube and subscribe, or do one of those things. Do something like that. Maybe you follow me on Instagram, but you don't follow me. You're not subscribed on YouTube. If you would just give us a subscribe, that would be great, because really, if you help me, you help them. The more traction, the more exposure that I can somehow get my guests to have, if I can get their story out to more people, it would benefit them. And I know it's like a weird thing, because you're like, but Zach, it would also benefit your podcast too. And then I don't know. It's a weird thing. I always feel like, see, the thing is, I'm not trying to gain something from this pod. I'm not trying to gain something. Eventually one day I will gain, some monetary, some monetary value from this podcast, but it's not going to be like, eventually this is going to turn into a platform to advertise small businesses. Okay. And to put businesses, names and products in the hearts and minds of individuals listening. Okay. Because that's really where you connect. It's one thing for you to go buy from Walmart. It's one thing for you to go to Amazon and buy a product. I do it all the time. I'm guilty. I am so guilty of doing this all the time, right? But when you actually get to hear the small business owner, when you actually get to hear the freelancer, and you get to hear the voice and the passion behind that story, it now connects you to that product in a whole nother level, on a whole nother way. So you feel connected. I'm not just trying to say this and make it like sell you. I'm not even trying to sell a product. Nobody has sold anything on my show. I've never made $1 from this. And that's not the thing, eventually one day I will. I'm not saying, like, I'm not trying to hide that from people and be like, hey, whatever this is going to be, one day this will become a valuable resource, and it will be a highly contested resource. And, and at that point, then, it would take a couple dollars in order to fit somebody in, but at this point right now, I'm doing this for free. I'm doing this because I have a passion to podcast. I have a voice, this is my thing. This is what I want to do. This is my dream right here. This podcast, this one podcast, I don't have 8 or 9 podcasts out there yet, but eventually I will. I'm still a rookie at this. This is what, 4 months into the podcasting, 4 or 5 months into the podcasting, adventure. So I don't know. I don't know what to think. I'm the host. And if I do my job right, as a host, it would be me to make less of me, so that way I could be of service to my guest, to the person I'm interviewing. That is my job. And one day somebody's going to pay me to do that. I'm going to become so good at making less of me to highlight my guest, to highlight the product, the dream, the passion of my guest. I'm going to become so good at that one day that people are going to pay me to do it. Okay. And I know it sounds ridiculous. I know it sounds insane. And you're like, whatever. It's a dream. A dream is a dream, right? And I am optimistic about my dreams. And I'm done chasing or fulfilling everybody else's dreams. I'm going to fulfill my dream. And it just so happens that my dream to become a top-rated podcast, to have a chart-topping podcast. That's what I want, guys. That's my personal dream, is to have a chart-topping podcast, to be a professional podcaster, to make a living doing this. That's what I really want to do. I don't want to do anything else. Obviously I want to be a good husband. I want to be a great father. Those things that's a given. But at the end of the day, I don't want to go work for somebody else. I don't want to go flip a burger. I don't want to go work in an Amazon warehouse somewhere. I don't want to go get a degree and become the next world's greatest scientist. I don't want to become a pastor, although I am very passionate about my faith, and I'm deeply connected and rooted in my faith, because that's me as a person. That's me as Zachary, not Zodizach, but as Zachary. I'm rooted in my faith. But, but my dream, my passion, it really revolves, it really encompasses what I'm doing in this podcast. I pull out my notes here because I'm a mad scientist up in this house. I've been my sister-in-law, bless her heart, my sister-in-law Katrina. She was on an episode. She has a nonprofit. If you guys could go check out my sister-in-law, her nonprofit, it's the Justice Debate League. She's doing some amazing things with that nonprofit. Go check it out, Justice Debate League. Google that; it'll come up. I also featured her on the podcast, so if you go back and you look through the library, you'll see Justice Debate League and prison reform. That was her episode. She mentioned a book in that episode. She said, she told me after, I think it was after or it was before, or it was during the episode or after. I can't remember exactly. She said, you should read What Color's My Parachute. And I mentioned it several times in the podcast already. I'm sure you guys are like, you guys are probably already over it. Like, Zach, we've heard it 100 times already. But I worked through this book, and it probably took maybe, I want to say about a week to get through the majority of the book. There were other parts that you actually have to take some time to think about, think through, continually to work and evolve the list of things that they ask you to gather. It turns into this huge exercise that takes several weeks for you to get through, to actually complete the book. And it was really interesting. I had a great time going through the book. I highly recommend it if you're looking for a career change, if you're trying to understand what your purpose is, if you're trying to connect purpose and career. I highly recommend this book, What Color is Your Parachute? Because that was me. That literally was me. If you know the story, I actually started podcasting as a hobby because I just love I love the platform. I love what it does. I love the media. I've listened to podcasts forever as a youth pastor. I learned more listening to podcasts and drilling the art of just, I guess, sermon of how to preach from listening to podcasts of preachers over and over and over again. I work night shift at a Circle K. And so what I would do is I would listen to these podcasts over and over and over. And I would, it's an 8-hour shift, and it's a night shift. You're in there doing your thing, cleaning, stocking, preparing for the morning rush, and getting ready to set up, the next day. So I would do that, and I would listen to these podcasts over and over. And I'd always think like, man, I would love to do this, but I never really actually pursued it. And several times I've done like one or two one-off episodes with my friends. Actually, if you've heard the intro to this podcast, if you're looking for the best podcast ever, this isn't it. You're listening to the Average Fellas Podcast. If you listen to the intro, my friend John, he actually did that for me. He's a voice actor. I'm going to get him on eventually. I'll get him on eventually. So many people I know, it's just hard to get around to everybody. But he's the original voice actor. His name's John Mashad. J Rock McGunther, I think is his handle. I'm not sure. He's a YouTuber, voice actor guy, and he actually did that several years ago. We were working together. We were working Night Audit, where I listened to a ton of podcasts. I listened to podcasts day and night working that job. And so he, we were there, and I had like some knowledge of making some social media posts and little videos, camera, AV stuff. I've always had a garage band. I've always, had some sort of recording capability because I've always been interested in capturing audio as a musician. So we were working Graveyard, and this all comes back to the book. I'll get back to the book eventually. We were working Graveyard, and we did an episode. We did several episodes. I think we did 2 episodes. We did one for him, where he talked about like some kind of dating thing. I can't remember exactly. And then after that, we did an episode on mine called the Quality and Boys podcast or something like that. It was us working Graveyard, and we did like stories of failed things that happened working at workplace horror stories or something like that. And it was fun. I had a really good time. I had a blast doing it. I loved it. It felt like something I could do. And I've obviously listened to the Joe Rogan podcast. Who hasn't? If you listen to podcasts, you know that he has a podcast at least. And I do listen to his podcasts from time to time. As much as people have opinions about the guy, whatever. He does do a job. He interviews certain people and certain guests that he have on. I am very interested in. So I do consume a lot of his content for that reason, because of a lot of the guests they bring on are very interesting, and they provide value to me. I wanted to see that Kanye West interview that he dropped. That was a great interview. Elon Musk was on his show. That's another, I know, and people have opinions about him too, but these people have money and they are in our reality today. So, whatever Elon Musk is innovating is affecting you today. It's affecting you. It literally is. So, so certain things like that. And so podcasts have become like this second nature to me. I love consuming media through podcasts, information. I love listening to other podcasts that talk about, nonprofits, talk about businesses. There's several other ones, but nobody does it the way I do it. I'll tell you that. Nobody's podcast does it the way I do it. And I think that's the difference. I think that's why people are going to come back to this podcast, because there's a community that is a small town folk community. There's this grassroots sort of support in this Average Fellas podcast sort of ship that we're sailing here. And I like that. That's my style. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about, being down, with the average folks. I'm not saying down. I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, I'm saying, like, I like being a part of the working folk. You know what I'm saying? I'm not a Hollywood elite. I'm not a government, a politician who is trying to make billions of dollars. I'm an average fella. And I'm here for the average fella. And I think together I had an opportunity, I'm going to get back to the book. This is why I'm a podcaster, because I can keep talking. I could tell stories for days. All right. So, anyway, getting back to this book, What Color's Your Parachute? Gosh, I went off on a huge tangent. Getting back to this book. I went through this book, and the reason why I talk about podcasting, so why I'm passionate about it, and why I think that one day I'm going to make money off of this. One day the reason why I believe somebody's going to pay me to do what I'm doing today is because I'm going to become that good at it. I'm going to keep doing this. This is the thing that I can do. I think I have a radio voice. I believe I have a radio voice. I believe in my own voice. And I believe I have the raw, rudimentary understanding to be able to actually produce the show myself. I am producing this show. There is a level of professionalism that I need to achieve, and I will achieve it. I will find the answers. I will fine tune. I will polish this thing all the way to the top until somebody will pay me to be on this podcast. That's my goal. That's what I'm going to do with the show. Okay. And I believe in myself, and I believe in the average fella. I believe in the small businesses. I believe in all you guys. If you have a product that you want to promote, hit me up, DM me, hit me up on Facebook, Instagram, shoot me a message on YouTube. I had a guy reach out on YouTube, and I sent him my email address. Hit me up, contact me. I would love to promote your product. I would love to partner with you. And produce an episode where I ask all the right questions that highlights your business, that focuses on your passion, and you get to share it with your voice. I don't get to make up the answers for your business. If someone wants, I don't know how to sell a car, but I'm going to get a car dealership to get on the show. Eventually a car dealership is going to be on the show. I'm going to get somebody on the show who knows how to sell cars, and he's going to sell a car over this podcast. That's what's going to happen. He's going to promote his business. He's going to tell you why you should go to him to purchase his car, your car. So if maybe you have a dealership, if you have a used car lot, or if you are just a huge dealership, I don't know, whoever you are, if you're interested in promoting your product, hit me up, hit me up, send me a message, you know what I'm saying? Instagram, Facebook, email me at averagefellas@gmail.com. averagefellas@gmail.com is my email. averagefellas@gmail.com is the email here. Email me. I'd love to connect with you. I'd love to get you on the show. I'd love to highlight your business. And like I said, ask you the right questions. Ask you the questions that promote your business. Ask you the questions that connect the listeners, the buyers, the potential clients and customers with the producers, with the people, the source of whatever it is. I've been going to farmers markets, and I've been trying local foods. I've been trying to highlight local people at farmers markets. If you've checked out my Instagram feed, I've been trying to get connected and rooted here in Riverside. I just made a move down here. So it's been almost a year now that I've been down here, but I'm really trying to get connected and invested in this community because I want to highlight their businesses. Because right now, during this COVID situation, I think everybody could use some help, especially businesses that are, restaurants that need to, need to sell some food, like I said, I've been going to the farmers markets, and there's a few people out there, I've taken their cards. I've reached out to a few of them on Instagram and, emailed one of them, and, we'll see, no hurt feelings. If nobody responds to me, that's okay. Everybody has a life. I got plenty of people responding to me already. I have, 2 or 3 episodes in advance already booked, ready to go. And I'm okay with that. That's perfect for me right now. I don't know if I could handle any more. You know what I'm saying? As this podcast producer, the independent podcast producer, I don't think I could handle any more than 3 or 4 weeks in advance. I'm not that, I don't know. I just can't spread my mental capacity that thin. Everything's got to be focused in the here and now. That's just how I am. That's why I'm a podcaster. That's why, like I said, this, let me get back to this book. I just keep going off. Let me get back to this book. We'll close your parachute. So the reason why, like I said, I believe that this is going to, that this podcast is going to turn into something valuable to somebody. It's going to become so valuable that people will pay me to interview them and to highlight their business, because I'm going to be that good of a podcast host and producer. And I will be able to connect customers, clients with business owners, nonprofits, people that are at the source, and we'll be able to do it in a grassroots independent fashion where there's no middleman. There's no third party something. You're not going through some mega corporation. You're going to get connected with the real source. And that's kind of what I want to highlight. That's what I want to do in the podcast. But I think the reason why I say that that's what the show's going to turn into is because after working through this book, I was able to put together a collection of words that this book helps you work through. They ask you questions like, in your past experience, your past job experience, what experiences in those jobs were most discomforting to you? What things about those jobs? I used to commute an hour and 15, hour and a half every day to work. Actually 45 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on traffic. It could go any way. It could be a really good day, 45, 50 minutes. You were showing up, you know what I'm saying? And when everything was rolling. And some days it could be catastrophic, 3 hours, 4 hours on the road before you got home. And shout out to all those people commuting. Those people commuting out there, the average fellas out there commuting, that's what this podcast is for you too. This podcast is for you, to entertain you and keep you going out there on the road. I know commuters listen to podcasts, and I just want to shout you guys out and say thank you for listening. Thank you for, and maybe you're commuting to go do your passion, to go do your dream. My hat's off to you. Maybe you're commuting because you got responsibilities, and this is, you have another dream, but and you're still listening to podcasts and thinking, Zach, I want to chase my dream, but this job, hey, if you have responsibilities, I tip my hat off to you too. It's just how it is, man. It's just how it is. And I'm from Los Banos, and that's a commuter town. Everybody commuted. My dad commuted. I commuted. As a matter of fact, you would take a pay cut to stay home. To stay in town, you have to take a pay cut. And that's terrible because there's not enough resource. There's not enough industry. There's not very much. It's just a bedroom town. So, in order for you to be somewhat financially set or able to provide, you got to commute. You got to do it over the internet. So anyways, or there's obviously certain jobs that you'll be able to make a living off of, but it's just such a small community that there's very few and far between positions available. So anyway, so this book, I'm still going back to this book. Oh my gosh. I put together these collections of words on it, and I'm just going to read them off to you. I'm going to read these words off to you, and I want you, as the listeners, I just want you guys to know that this is me. This is Zodizach. In a nutshell, this is why he's producing the show. This is why he's asking these people onto the show. This is why he's doing what he's doing, because this is Zodizach's spirit in its entirety here. Ready? So when I think about a dream career or a dream position that I would aspire to achieve or to have or to hold, I believe that podcasting encompasses that because of these words here, because the things that I care about the most, that I'm most interested in when it comes to maybe pursuing my dream or my career, whatever you want to call it, these words, it's myself is number one. I know you're saying, that's selfish, Zach, that's selfish. But I think anybody who's an artist, anybody who's an entrepreneur, anybody who has a, like my wife is a scientist. Like that's what she is. She's a scientist, and I think for her, there is this thing where it's like, it drives her to achieve that next level, in her academic career. She keeps moving to the next step. And the part of it is because she believes in herself. And so I believe in myself when it comes to this podcasting thing, just as much as my wife, who's a scientist, so cool. She believes in herself, and I believe in her too, obviously. But, I know that she knows that where she's gifted at, she knows herself. And so she believes in herself when it comes to that thing. And when it comes to doing what she does in that capacity. So like I said, I believe in myself when it comes to podcasting. I really do. I believe, not that I know, I believe I can do this. Secondly, like I said, I'm a faith person. I've gone to church my entire life. I haven't always lived it. If you know me, you know that I am not a perfect angel by any stretch of the imagination. Okay. And, but that's okay. And, I'm, like I said, I'm deeply rooted in my faith, and that's who I am as a person. So I want to take on some characteristics of my faith and use them in this business venture, to use them in this podcast. And what I mean by that is I want to serve people. And I think I've learned that from my faith. I've learned that from being involved in my faith. I've learned how to serve people. And so that's another part of it. So it's myself and my faith. I think those two things, I believe in myself, and I believe that, I love to serve people because of my faith. I've always had an interest in audio and in film, audio and visual stuff. I've always been involved in music. All my friends can attest for this, all the garage bands that we've had and stuff, and always wanted to do that. And I've always wanted to get into more like video and photography. I actually had a photography business for a while, a very small one, a successful one though. I shot, I want to say 7 weddings. So I'd say it's successful. I made some business cards. I had return customers. I went out and I was able to get clientele. I think it was successful. I'm not saying I was, a brilliant photographer, but I was able to make money shooting photos. So I've always had that audio film sort of, creative side of me. Another word that I've put on this list is lead and pioneer. I guess those are synonymous with each other, lead and pioneer. I believe that I've always had sort of this lead pioneer spirit about myself, a little bit of go figure it out by myself, because, and the reason why I say that is because if you get me in a room with 3 or 4 people to try and solve a solution, right away, there's 2 things that can happen for me. I can feel intimidated, or I can feel overly confident. Okay. And I guess I'm a really dynamic individual, and so it's all or nothing. My wife will tell you it's 0 to 100 with me. And what I mean by that is how that connects to lead and pioneer is, I'm not saying I have a problem with authority, but now that I've discovered what I want to do, I'm not going to let anybody take that away from me. I'm going to lead and pioneer this, for myself. I'm not going to let nobody stop me from doing my dream. And that takes some leadership and pioneering on your own accord to do that for yourself. And so, that's why I guess that encompasses this lead and pioneer. And also I want to lead and pioneer in the spirit of gratitude and giving back. Like I talked about how the faith that I believe in, that I personally believe in, it convicts me to serve people. That's what my faith does to me. And this is a way that I can do that. I know I can do this. I have a voice. I have a podcast that I produce myself. And if I can serve small businesses, nonprofits, it's connected me to my passion. A life of servitude, servanthood is one of my passions. It fits under this umbrella. So another word is intuition. I think I'm a people person. I think I know how to vibe with people. Like, we might disagree on 100 different things, but I can find some common ground between us, and I can highlight that common ground, and I can actually really find ways to connect despite differences. I think I have that sort of intuition to be that sort of person, to be that connection between customer and product. I have the intuition to ask the right question, to highlight your services, your small business, your mission statement, and make it somehow resonate with the listener out there. I think that's what my intuition gives me. It gives me that ability to do that. And I believe that about myself. So It's a very weird episode. If you're listening to this episode, you know, and you and you don't like its style, just, you know, you can scroll on. You can stop it and move on. But, you know, this is me being honest. This is me sharing who I am as a host, as an individual, as Zodizach or Zach. And I want to connect with you guys. I want to show some of myself with you. Obviously, maybe that's being vulnerable. Maybe that's being the person that I'm being right now. Am I acting silly? I sure am. I'm talking to myself on a microphone right now. I don't know who's going to listen to this. I'm just holding this piece of paper, reading these words off and talking. So I'm going to continue. Entertainer is another one of the words on this list. Entertainer. I think, I've always wanted to make people laugh because I think laughter definitely heals the soul, providing that little bit of, I guess, relief. I used to work at a movie theater, and funny story, my friend Ivan and I used to work in a movie theater together, and he was actually one of my first guests on the show, comedian Ivan Garcia. Great comedian, funny guy. Oh man, I love it. I love what he's doing. Absolutely love what he's doing. We used to work at this movie theater together, and one time I was sitting there and we were having this all hands meeting, and our boss comes in, and I was like, "Excuse me, sir, what is our motto?" And he says, "The theater experience." I was like, what does that mean? What does a theater experience mean? And he begins to elaborate about the theater experience. He's like, people come to the theater to escape life. People get away from their 9 to 5 and they come to the theater, they eat some popcorn with their family, or by themselves. And they come watch this movie. They don't want to be distracted. They want to see the big screen. They want to hear the movie clearly. They want the perfect resolution. Your job in the theater is to be as painless and easy as possible and out of the way to just serve these people to go and enjoy the movie in all its glory, right? That's your job pretty much as a theater. And so he said the theater experience. And so when I talk about entertaining, it goes back to that. It goes back to this whole entire, this sort of experience when you come on, when you're a listener out there, like I said, I want to provide value for you. I want you to come on. I want you to listen to this podcast. And every time you listen into it, you're inspired, you learn something, you think about something differently. Maybe you're challenged. Maybe there's something that somebody says that challenges your thoughts, about something, that's all a part of that. All falls under the entertaining part. And it all falls under another one. Another one I put is use your brain, use brain. I know that's so generic, but like I said, I like, thinking abstractly about some things. I might have somebody on this show who might be out of pocket for you, who might be abrasive to you, because I've had people on like that, already. And I've had experiences with people where, we totally vibe and we get it and I'm just all about it. And other times I've been on the episode where, I'm not sure. I'm not sure where I stand when I ask the questions from the opposite side. I haven't really felt out, the vibe yet, but it usually takes a while to warm up. And I'm sure you've heard me like that. I'm sure you've heard interviews go from being sort of robotic to all of a sudden they start to loosen up and then you start to get comfortable in the conversation. That's why podcasts are interesting. Podcasts are interesting because you get to go from a start to a finish and you get to see a relationship develop real time through the questions happening. That's why I like watching Joe Rogan's podcast. Because especially when he had someone like Kanye West on, their opinions, their views on life definitely differ, but there is a lot of common ground. There's a lot of shared ground and there's a lot of differences, but seeing that relationship develop in real time, what started off as a few back and forth messages. And, I think Kanye West is in a point in his career where being on Joe Rogan is valuable to him. And for Joe Rogan to have Kanye West on is valuable. And that's why this conversation took place. And that's why we were all able to enjoy it. So, when I talk about using the brain, it goes back to these sorts of things, like having people who you wouldn't ever really expect to have on this show. I'm going to have small businesses on. I'm going to have nonprofits on. Maybe the nonprofit that I have on doesn't necessarily support something that you care about. That's okay. That's okay, because ultimately I'm giving everybody the equal opportunity on the show. Okay, that's what the Average Fellas podcast stands for. I know I used fellas, and I'm sure that someone out there's gonna be like, that's kind of sexist because you use fellas. I'm not trying to make it. It's not. I didn't put enough forethought into it, to think about, this. I made this logo years ago, and I just I ran with this idea that I was one brick in the wall. I was just another one person. I was another human. And so that's how the Average Fellas podcast sort of idea sort of came up. That's how I came up with it, So ultimately, I guess the idea is equal opportunity on the show. So nonprofits or businesses that maybe you're vegan, maybe you're vegan, and I have somebody who's who only eats proteins, you know what I'm saying? And so maybe I might share somebody like that. It might be that way, but ultimately, like I said, this is because these are small businesses. These are people that have a passion, first of all, and they're humans that have a passion. And that's all I want to do is highlight every individual, every average, every equal person's passion. That's all I want to do. And, so, that's why I say, use your brain. This is something that comes up. I know that's a weird way to put it, but I'm into that. I want to be challenged. I want my faith to be challenged. As a person of faith, I want it to be challenged by another worldview. I want to hear the other worldview. I find them extremely interesting, whether I agree with it or not. There's a lot of things that I do that people in my faith don't agree with. So I'm not saying I'm not trying to whatever. I don't want to get too deep into that, because ultimately that's another thing about this show, is that I'm not trying to overly resonate one particular topic, including my own worldviews. That's something that I want to personally sort of keep in check and be fair about myself, because this podcast is going to service more people than myself. It is to serve people in general, the average person, no matter what color, creed, whatever you want to call it. This podcast is to be of servitude, right? And last but not least, I want to use my imagination. And I think this podcast allows me to do that. I think this podcast allows me to use my imagination and to get creative in how I reach people, creative in how I promote shows, creative in how I ask the questions. It allows me to use my imagination to build a community. That's one thing. Side note here. Eventually, I'm gonna do a solo episode on Minecraft, and I'm gonna do probably gonna be a 3-hour episode just on Minecraft, and how there are principles in Minecraft that you can learn that apply to your everyday reality outside of Minecraft. Minecraft is a brilliant game. Minecraft is a game that allows you to be creative and use your imagination in a way that you couldn't do in this reality, because there is an infinite amount of space in Minecraft because it's a digital world. Anyways, and the game forever generates. So, fight me on that, because I've never made it to the end, and I've yet to see somebody. Anyways, back to this, using my imagination. I think that podcasting allows me to use my imagination, like I said, and how I reach people and how I promote people, how I ask the right questions. Allows me to use my imagination to eventually market a product, eventually build something of my own, and have a platform to be able to engage an audience and to be able to take my product and connect it with a buyer. That's one day this podcast will turn into that. And I'm not trying to, this is the thing, is I'm not trying to be it's not like a prideful thing. This is not like I'm being oh yeah. This is a way. The reason why I want to say it now, and the reason why I'm recording it now, because it's inside of me as a dream. It's inside of me as a passion. It's inside of me as this is me and this is my thing. It's inside of me as me owning me being me being. This is me owning it, my thing. This is me stepping up to the plate and doing what Zach does. Okay. And I think podcasting gives me that opportunity. So once again, guys, this is the Average Fellas podcast. This is a Wednesday episode. This is a different episode. This was an episode where you got to get sort of a inside look at the host and producer of this podcast. You got to sort of see how his crazy mad scientist brain thinks. And I'm glad to be able to share the vision with you. I hope you guys get the vision through this podcast, through this episode. Okay. Those of you guys listening, like I said, this podcast does more. I want this podcast to do more for people than for myself. Okay. but eventually, eventually I will get something out of this podcast, because this is my passion and this is my dream. And that's what I'm building. I'm going to build this podcast, which will highlight the average individuals, nonprofits, small businesses. It'll give them a voice. Those people who feel like they have an average voice, those people who feel like maybe they can't quite cut through the noise of the rest of the the Hollywood elites and the government politicians, all these people who, I don't know if maybe you feel like that out there. That's why average is in the title of this podcast, because I think there is a missed opportunity. There's a missed market. There's a demographic of people like myself who feel average, who don't feel less than, who don't feel more than, who don't feel greater than other people. We feel like we are like everybody else, but we do have a passion. And I do believe that everybody's passion and dream needs to be observed, needs to be looked at, needs to be recognized. Or else we're not being human at that point. So whatever, maybe I'm preaching. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just podcasting. I'm just sharing my thoughts, guys. Once again, guys, I would love a review. I'd love you guys to go into Apple Podcasts, leave us a review, write a review, rate us on Apple Podcasts, go to YouTube, subscribe to us there. We got some bonus content there. Eventually I will have more bonus content to put on YouTube. I will have video stuff that I will put on YouTube, but this podcast is still too early. It's too early in the game for me. I'm still a rookie at most of this. So, but like I said, I'm going to get there. Yeah, so like I said, I'm gonna get there. I'm going to polish this to a professional content creator status. That's what I want to do. Okay, I want to create content that is professional. That when you listen, when you consume this content over a podcast, it sounds great. My guests and my interviewing style is spot on. I like I said, I want to be so good at being an interviewer that people would pay me to ask them the questions. Okay. That's what I want to do. That's my passion. Anyways, once again, guys, this is the Average Fellas Podcast. Every review helps. Every share helps. Every like, subscribe helps. Everything helps. All those things help. Okay. And they all add up to something in all the algorithms more than you know. Okay. That's another thing. I have a friend of mine who's my web marketing consultant right now. And I have some bonus content from him that I'm saving to drop, but I will get him on eventually. I'm even, I'm asking people questions that are valuable. What does SEO look like? Search engine optimization. What does it look like to diversify the media platforms that I'm putting things on? How do I connect? How do I create some synergy where there's some sharing and driving traffic? There's some funneling taking place. Like, I'm learning all these different things right now currently, and I'm trying to take a professional approach. Eventually, there's a few people that I have in mind who I'm going to contact when it comes to, providing some branding things for me, maybe even refining my logo, maybe even, right now I'm trying to put together a new computer. I have a very small home rig right here. And this is too small. This will never achieve the professional quality that I absolutely want, that I believe is critical to the success of my podcast. What I have now is not going to do the job for what I need in the future. And so it starts with upgrading the quality of my audio. Maybe it starts with upgrading the quality of my editing. So, hey, if you have any recommendations, there's something that maybe, you feel like I should take a look at maybe a little differently, shoot me an email at averagefellas@gmail.com. averagefellas@gmail.com. Once again, like I said, I'm trying to end this thing. I'm trying to stop, but I can't, guys. I just can't stop because this is what I do. I podcast. Anyways, like I said, I'm going to take it to the next level. Okay. That's my promise to myself. It's my promise to myself. If this episode exists and only 6 people download this episode, by the way, guys, we're averaging 35, 45 downloads an episode, in between 35 and 45. So about 40 downloads an episode. Okay. And that's pretty good. I think we're 4 months into the show and every episode's about 40 downloads. I'm proud of that. I'm proud to stand behind that. I'm going to have my best month yet, the month of October. I'm recording this in the month of October now. I'm going to have my best month yet. Over 300 downloads are going to be reached this month. I'm proud of that. I'm excited for that, man. That means a lot to me. That means that this podcast is growing. Okay, last month we did, I think, 270. The month before that, did about 290. So yeah, I'm going to break the 300 mark, and I'm excited for it, man. I'm super excited for what we're doing here. I think we're getting some traction. What little traction I am getting, maybe I'm sure that, I mean, I'm looking at podcast numbers with people with 15 million, an hour. It's like a 500,000 downloads, or 6 million downloads or whatever it might be. Some crazy astronomical number, right? And in the reality of podcasting, I don't need that number to be successful. Okay. In podcasting, there's a bar that you hit because this is such an uncontested market. There's so few people doing podcasting today. There's more YouTubers, there's more Instagrammers, obviously Facebookers, all those things. There's more content creators on every other platform than there are on podcasts that are producing podcasts, actively producing podcasts. So this is a way for me to cut through the noise because it's less contested. I'm a bigger fish in this sea because there's less users. And that all depends on what, maybe you're listening to this and you're a content creator. Go to where there's less users. Use hashtags where there's less contested content, okay? Find yourself a hashtag with 100 less tags, 100 less pieces of content attached to it. Own it. Take it over. Destroy it. So when people find that hashtag, they see your content first, okay? That's what I'm doing. And there's strategies like this that you need to use to get your exposure, to build your following. So that way, when I drop a piece of content, when I promote your business, when I promote the average fella, all this goes into place to get the next listener, to get the next customer connected to you, to get the next person connected to the services that you provide. All that goes into consideration. I'm learning all that today. I'm trying to master that. I'm trying different things. I even got a green screen going now. I'm going to try some different things to sort of, like I said, work on some content. Maybe create different styles of content, see what that does to get some exposure. Right now I have some resources on my YouTube channel that are just simple tutorials. And I made those tutorials so that way when I'm on Facebook and I see that somebody has a problem, I can link that video to their issue and then they can go watch that video, because I have an answer for them. And then these are simple answers that I'm doing for like Audacity, which is a recording software that I use to produce this podcast. When somebody says, what do I do for some recording software? I don't know what to do. And I'm just like, here's some free software. And then I link them a video of me explaining how I use my interface to that software. Those sorts of things. All these little things, I'm doing to provide some value to my listeners, to get the next person to subscribe, to get the next follower, to get the next like, to get the next subscribe, to get the next review, because I want the exposure, because I want to connect my guests with the listeners, because I want your business to get the promotion, to get the eyes on it that it deserves. That's my job. And I'm doing that. And one day it's going to be valuable to somebody. One day I will have 10,000 followers on the Instagram account. I don't know how I'm going to do that, but everything matters. Every piece of content that I design that goes onto that Instagram page matters. And I need to figure out why it matters and how it works. Why isn't getting the response that it needs in order to be worth something? All this goes into effect. I'm running my own ads right now on Facebook. So if maybe you're in California, if you're in Florida, you're in Texas, and if you're in Oklahoma, I think Oklahoma, Florida, Texas, and California, I'm running my ads in those states right now. Okay. And I think I reached over something like 3,000 users have interfaced with my ads. Okay. And that means either they've seen my ad, that means that they maybe liked my ad, that means that maybe they even followed the learn about me ad, which sent them to my podcast, my Google podcast list, because on Google Podcast, you can send that to Apple users or to Droid users, to OS or Droid users. So those of you guys who are podcasters, if you're listening to this right now, when you drop a link, I recommend that you drop the Google Podcast link, because it doesn't matter what platform you're on, Google will automatically bring up a web page for them to observe, to go through, to look at your stuff if you're a podcaster. A lot of people just recommend their Spotify playlist, and you're losing out. That's an untapped market there, because not everybody has Spotify and you have to install that app. Okay. Not everybody's an iPhone user, although every iPhone comes with Apple Podcasts already installed on it. So if you have an Apple Those of you guys who know people who are Apple users, do me a favor, go on their phone, look at my podcast and subscribe to them. Okay. Go on your friend's phone, subscribe to my podcast on your friend's phones if they own an Apple podcast, right? If they have Apple. But if you're a podcaster, know that you're losing out. You're losing out if you're only I do have my Apple link, I think, on one of the platforms. So I got to change that to the Google one. But the Google one it'll work on any platform, any phone, any operating system. So that's why I dropped that link specifically. Once again, guys, this is the Average Fellas Podcast. I'm doing all the dirty work. I'm grinding it out right now. Every follow counts, every subscribe counts, every like, every comment, all those things count for me right now. And I'm putting in work trying to get the next one, to get to the next tier, man. Once I get to 300 followers on the Instagram account, woo, party, man. Once we get to 200 people in the Facebook group, party. Once we get to 100 people on our Instagram account, party. Once we get to 100 subscribers on the YouTube, party. You know what I'm saying? Like we're celebrating every step of the way, every milestone that this podcast reaches. It's because of listeners, it's because of your guys' participation, and I respect and I appreciate and I'm honored to have that. So once again, guys, this is the Average Fellas Podcast. I'm your host, Zodizach. Thank you guys for listening. A little bit different content tonight, but like I said, I hope you appreciate it. Always, guys, peace and love.